Tonight, why a stagecoach will journey again through Otago Goldfields towns. A lake that's waited 25 years for answers. And our chosen singers in the New Zealand Choral Federation competition. Good evening. First, a decision today that's bound to create a storm on the Taieri. The $15 million lower Taieri flood protection scheme will go ahead. The Otago Catchment Board has overridden the objections of the majority of Taieri people who say they don't want the scheme because they can't afford it. Mark Price reports.
All the indications today were that the board would can the scheme, described by objectors as too grandiose. But after 2 hours debate, the board told its staff to go out and build a flood protection scheme, one that's been in the planning for 10 years, one that the people say they don't want.
The word democracy comes to mind. We have a situation where there have been 4 surveys over a period of several years, 2 within just the last 2 months, and in both cases 70% of the people voted against it. And here we have a situation today where we have a local body foistering an unwanted scheme upon the Taieri people.
Mr Nelson agrees flood protection's needed on the lower Taieri. It's just that the scheme chosen by the Catchment Board is too big. 3 members changed their tune at today's meeting, first recommending not to go ahead, then after 2 hours voting to proceed. It appears a South Tonight item earlier this week changed some minds.
When we met on Monday, it was obvious to me that the majority of the people were against it. And then with the advent of the television program on Wednesday night, there was a tremendous number of people rang me saying that they suddenly now realise the full implications of a piecemeal scheme, which means it was going to cost them almost the same amount of money as the comprehensive scheme and to a lower standard. So then they changed their minds.
There seemed to be a wide body of people that wanted a scheme of some form or another. And I think it got to the stage that the board had to take a decision themselves, because the longer we delayed, the more divided the people come. And if we delayed any longer, we couldn't have got works in progress this year. And that's important to get a start.
But the people don't appear to be divided. Of 70% say they don't want the scheme.
Well, I suppose that's something that the Catchment Board's got to face. Sometimes in public body you've got to make these decisions. And we believe that the Taieri is so important for the overall region of Otago, from communication, the airport, and food production. Perhaps we've got to look at it in a much wider light than individuals have done.
Board members are expecting their decision will cause quite a stir on the Taieri.
Another head office is shifting away from Dunedin. The New Zealand Salmon Company will almost certainly be moving to Christchurch to be nearer its salmon farming operations in Canterbury. The move's been in the wind for some time, as Jim Moore reports.
New Zealand Salmon employs more than 600 people in its various operations. There's a joint salmon farming venture in Chile, sea pens on Stewart Island, mussel farming in Marlborough, tomato and kiwi fruit cultivation based in Gisborne, and in Canterbury, the Lake Coleridge Hatchery and the Tentburn Ocean Ranch. The head office move to Christchurch means the company's managers will be closer to the 2 Canterbury operations. Ironically, it'll also make it easier for the company to liaise with its Stewart Island sea pens. There's a better air service between Christchurch and Invercargill than between Dunedin and Invercargill. New Zealand Salmon says it's making the move reluctantly, but it makes the point that only 12 head office staff are involved and all of them will keep their jobs.
I spent 21 very enjoyable years in Dunedin, and the company was founded in Dunedin in 1983. We thought long and hard about the move, but we really have no alternative.
We hear these days in the age of, high-tech communications, there's no disadvantage being based in Dunedin anymore. Is that true for you?
Well, our company is very dependent on communication because we have operations that stretch from Dunedin through to Gisborne in New Zealand. And unfortunately, the toll bill that the company has is a very significant factor in our total administrative operations. And we've done our exercises. It will be significantly cheaper to make our toll calls out of Christchurch than Dunedin.
How much money, for example, would you save in tolls and faxes and things like that?
We're anticipating saving in excess of $40,000 in toll bills and faxes.
Commercial premises are also cheaper in Christchurch than in Dunedin. The company says if it had a manufacturing base here, it would stay because of the quality and stability of the workforce in Dunedin. The move north is planned for next January.
Event tourism will get going in central Otago in November, with the Otago Goldfields heritage celebrations being run again. Last year, the project centred around a 10-day reenactment of a journey through the Goldfields by stagecoach. This year, there'll be more backing, and the celebrations will be part of the event tourism concept recently launched by the Tourist and Publicity Department. Bernard Buck reports.
Last November's reenactment was exactly 125 years after the first Cobb & Co coach journey back in 1862. It began in Dunedin and travelled throughout the Otago Goldfields for 10 days. According to the coordinator, Fleur Sullivan, who has the backing of the Alexandra Clyde Tourism and Promotion Group, last year's event was a big success. People turned out in period costume, competitions were held, and generally speaking, everyone had a good time. But she believes that effort only scratched the surface and that it could well be developed further. She says what she's been working at over the past few months is to get the Goldfield celebrations recognised by the Tourist and Publicity Department as part of its event tourism scheme. Now that's been achieved, it's the first in the country to be recognised in the department's drive for events that will attract people to an area. So
Yes.
how do you feel about that?
Oh, really, really good. And this now officially recognises it as something that can be marketed, promoted overseas, raised to an international standard for a tourist trail in Otago.
And another plus is that the Department of Conservation, which has 21 gold parks throughout Otago, will join in promoting the Goldfields Heritage celebrations.
The long-awaited report on how to clean up Lake Hayes was finally released today. The Otago Catchment Board's environmental consultant has recommended strategies to solve the lake's algae problem, which produces scum and a bad smell. But as Jim Moore discovered, this doesn't mean anything will be done in a hurry.
Dr. Barry Robertson's study was begun in 1982 and it's cost about $100,000. There have been many earlier reports, and locals say the lake could be covered by the pieces of paper written about it. The studies are thought to go back about 25 years. The trouble with Lake Hayes has been ugly and smelly algae growth on the surface during the summer. It interferes with recreation, clouds the water, and produces an unattractive scum. As well, the trout fishery has declined. The main nutrient of the algae is phosphorus. It has to be eliminated from the lake, probably by establishing a wetland where Mill Creek flows in. That would filter the phosphorus out before it can get into the lake. Ironically, it was the Catchment Board which originally drained the wetland to reclaim it. The lake itself can be treated either by chemical dosing or by artificially maintaining oxygen levels. The latest report is enormously technical, but in some ways its findings are very close to what the locals have been saying for years. The problem now is who's going to pay for it. The Catchment Board is to set up a coordinating committee to develop an action plan. This will take 6 months. The board refers to the need for a blend of funding inputs, meaning it doesn't want to pay for it all itself. The locals don't want to pay for it either. They say they already fork out a special rate for living near the lake. It's thought the local council will be asked for money, but no one knows yet what the work will cost. It could be $100,000, it could be $500,000.
I think funding is going to be an issue. Whether it becomes a problem depends on how much people think the lake is worth.
No, it's not just the Catchment Board's concern, but why has it taken so long to decide on a course of action?
This is the first time that a study has been made of this nature, focused at management results. Earlier studies have had a more academic interest and have not been as comprehensive. So this is the first time that we've had the wherewithal to proceed.
Lake Hayes is one of New Zealand's most beautiful and most photographed lakes when it's looking its best. Hopefully in a few years it'll look good all year round.
It's going to be a big weekend for 9 secondary schools throughout the country as their musical groups perform in the New Zealand Choral Federation competitions in Wellington. 3 South Island schools are included, and our region's represented by the Queen's High School Madrigal Group from Dunedin. They're in the studio to sing for us.
Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-dee. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-da. I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. What a glorious feeling! I'm happy again. I'm laughing and laughing, so down the clouds. The sun's in my heart, and I'm ready for love. Let the stormy clouds chase everyone from the place. Come on with the rain, I've a smile on my face. I'll walk down the lane, I'm walking down the lane, and singing, just singing in the rain. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-dee, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-da. Singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. What a glorious feeling! I'm happy again. I'm laughing at clouds. So dark. The sun's in my heart, and I'm ready for love. Let the stormy clouds chase everyone from the place. Come on, come on, come on with the rain. I've a smile on my face. I'll walk down the lane. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, with the happy refrain. Do-do-do-do-do-do, and singing, singing in the rain.
Excellent. Well, we didn't have to sing in the rain today, but we certainly had some snow around the place this morning and some cold temperatures to go with it. A last look at the temperatures for this week. In Invercargill, predicting a high of 10 degrees for you tomorrow, and in Dunedin, we're predicting a high of 11. It should be good stuff for the Otago Bay of Plenty match tomorrow. The high today was recorded in Kurau, where it was clear and 14. It was sunny in Taieri, but the low there of 4 degrees. Have a great weekend, whatever you're doing. We'll be back same time Monday night. Good night.